computer. There we go. It's recording.
All right.
Cool.
Now we're just going to go over our agenda, which is I'm going to give you a brief introduction to who we are, and then we'll ask you a series of 10 questions. There's no real rush on time, but just be mindful of time. And we're looking forward to speaking with you. So let me start off by saying I'm Nikki Hatfield. I'm the Black Union President, and I'm happy to be having you here. And I'm going to popcorn it over to Trillia.
Hi, I'm Trillia Hargrove. I'm a member of the BSU. I'm going to be a joint facilitator with Nikki. And yeah, we're really happy to meet with you. I'm going to popcorn it over to Kier.
Hi, Alan. My name is Kiera Wilson. I am the Vice President of the Black Student Union, and we are very, very grateful that you could come here to our platform and talk to us today.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, definitely I want to listen, spend as much time talking as I do listening.
Awesome.
Okay.
So to give you a little bit of context, the Black Student Union is currently advocating for structural change and sustainability of our programs. We cannot continue to be silenced or pushed to the margins. We no longer want to have just conversations, right? We want action to really be behind all the conversations that we have with the potential candidates. We really are focused on the rhetoric that this college is putting out, which is students first, right? And we want to make sure that is not just rhetoric, but really something they embody in their policy and in the way they interact with students in general. So that's a little bit of context as to why we're having these conversations. Our intention is to meet with every potential candidate and then inform our people and our peers, like these are the values they stand for. These are the things they've committed to. So then when come November 3rd, they can make the most informed vote that they possibly can.
Okay.
Awesome. So yeah, feel free to give us a light introduction. I know, Trill, you sent over the first question.
Yeah.
You can dive in, however you choose. You can dive in answering that question or just, give us a little background.
Yeah.
Sure. So is the question just for me to introduce myself?
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay, sure.
Whatever kind of introduction you'd like.
Okay, sounds good. So I'm just very happy to be here today. It's really exciting to meet you guys. For me, City College means so much to me. I was born and raised in San Francisco, and my entire family went to City College. When my dad came here as an immigrant, he got laid off from his factory job putting together software parts. So he went to City College to improve his English, and it was there that he found out about the culinary program. So he enrolled in that, and the culinary program enabled him to work at a restaurant and later become a local to Union Hotel. And it was with that job that he was able to support my family for 2 decades in laws in the Sunset. For my mom, she took ESL classes, and it just helped her be able to talk to family members and be more self-confident and happy. For myself, as a high school student at Lincoln High and then later UC San Diego, I took City College classes when I was in high school and during college and after college as well. And so the classes that I took at City College while I was in high school and college, it actually gave me that extra boost to help me graduate from UCSD when I was just 19 years old. So City College has really shaped my life and made a big impact on my family. And graduating early and saving that time, debt, and money because of City College enabled me into public service. After I graduated, my first job was taking on a role of AmeriCorps, serving. I got a stipend of about $1,000 a month for 2 years. And my first role with AmeriCorps was working at risk youth in the Tenderloin at the Indo-Chinese Development Corporation, working at risk youth. And it's this really gritty neighborhood and supporting the education of young people and helping them be successful. This kind of community center that I was working at was like kind of an oasis in the middle of everything else in the Tenderloin and supporting their education. The second year of AmeriCorps, I worked for the American Red Cross doing disaster preparedness for low-income communities in the Bay Area. So after that, I became a union organizer, working for various labor unions, and most recently of SEIU, being an advocate for home care and hospital workers. And our strongest members were Black, Hispanic, and Asian women that were speaking up for themselves. And so part of my job was making sure that they're strong advocates, and supporting them and coaching them and making sure that they're good leaders. There's a little bit of a phone ringing in the background. Hope you don't mind that.
No worries.
So more recently, I'll turn that off so it doesn't.
I see we got somebody else in the chat painting.
I think that's
Oh.
Jasmine.
That's
Hi.
Jazz.
Hi.
Yes, what's happening?
Sorry, we have a new BSU member, but
Okay.
thanks.
Hi.
Sorry, continue.
Hey.
Okay, yeah, so more recently, I've been serving as an aide to Supervisor Gordon Marr, where I've been working on a whole bunch of significant city college policy initiatives. So last year, I worked on the legislation to secure free city college for the next decade. So the initial two-year pilot program was about to expire. So our office kind of took on the mantle of leadership on this very important policy issue. So working with city college stakeholders, including trustees, administration, as well as Department Children, Youth, and their families, and all these different city college stakeholders with the Free City Coalition, we worked to get legislation passed to secure the program for another decade and actually improve the funding for our low-income and equity students. Under the previous formula, it wasn't as equitable because what it would do is it would give $46 per unit to students that weren't receiving federal or state aid. So basically people didn't qualify in the first place, while people that qualified for state or federal aid and had their already had tuition support, they get a small stipend. So so the situation turned into a thing where, hey, the students that actually qualify for state and federal aid are getting they're getting less money than the kids that aren't. So in the new program design, everybody gets $46 per unit. So if you are if you don't have financial aid because you never qualified, you get that tuition support for free tuition. But if you qualify for student aid, then you will get $46 per unit as a stipend in your own pocket to support your expenses. So that was one of the big program design changes that improved for our equity and low-income students. The other thing that we got was a $5.4 million in back pay for City College, because during the first 2 years of City College, they lost some amount of funding that wasn't recouped. So
What 2 years was that? When was that?
The first 2 years of the Free City program.
Oh, okay.
I think that would be what?
That's
16,
really recent.
17, or maybe 16, 17, 18 during those fiscal years. So, so that money was $5.4 million was sent back to City College. So under this agreement, it was a win-win situation for everybody. We've got this agreement securing the program for the next 10 years and ensuring funding, and also improving the program design so that our low-income and equity students have equitable funding. So it's not benefiting kind of like the kids that actually don't qualify for financial aid a little bit more. The other thing that I've been working on has been expanding City College into the Sunset neighborhood. So if you look at a map west of the main campus, you actually don't see any sort of City College locations on the west side, west of the main campus. So one thing that I worked on was doing a needs assessment in our community, working with nonprofits in the neighborhood, like Community Youth Center, Wame School, Sunset Youth Services, Sunset Neighborhood Beacon Center, as well as the teachers and senior groups like Senior Power. And so bringing these groups together to do a needs assessment in our community and doing a survey and a town hall. And so with that feedback, we got over 400 surveys. And using that information, we were able to prove and justify to City College that there's a need and demand in our community for additional City College resources. So with that,
so what programs are you interested in putting into the Sunset? Because of course you can't build a new facility, you would use somebody else's, but what classes would be, as most of those residents are mostly Asians and whites over there?
Yeah, so what we worked on was we partnered up with Lincoln High School and also Wame School. So at Lincoln High School, we were able to place high school dual enrollment programs at Lincoln High, so the high school students there are actually able to take those classes and have it count for high school and college credit. So now that helps support a pathway to college, right? They're young people that are going to Lincoln, they're like, now, hey, I am taking a city college class. I can be successful and go to college. And maybe city college is a place for me because I'm taking a city college class. So we've had calculus classes, we've had college success classes, we had American Sign Language, we had ethnic studies classes based at Lincoln that the students can now take and account for high school and college, right? Maybe graduate a little bit earlier like me. And then at Wame School, serving the broader community, we've been able to place older adult ESL and child development classes, where the workers at Wame School, which is an after-school program, their workers are able to get off work, and they're able to now literally go through the entire child development permit program, the basic permit program, just by getting off work and taking classes immediately where they're at. For our office representing, in my day job as a legislative aide representing the Sunset District, this is something that we are able to carry forward and bring to our constituents. And I think this is a model that we can bring into other neighborhoods. At San Francisco, we in the Sunset, we didn't have any campuses, so we were able to partner up with Lincoln and Wame and get these classes located in our community rent-free. We didn't have to pay rent because they were gaining from it, right? Lincoln, they want their students to have those classes. Wame, they want to serve the community and their own workforce. And so in these other places like the Southeast or Chinatown or some of these other underserved campuses, Mission, they already have these existing campuses. So I've actually been reaching out to folks like APRI and YCD, like Dion J. Brookter with YCD, who has endorsed me. I've been talking to him about my ideas about how we can kind of bring this concept of doing a needs assessment and getting the community to tell us what they need to justify to City College, and actually placing classes in the community and allocating classes from the main campus to these neighborhoods that have been traditionally underserved by City College. So that's one idea I have. The other thing that I've been working on for the past year has been the Workforce Education and Recovery Fund. So as you may a City College, there's been a lot of kind of fiscal issues and challenges with the college, and there's this sort of like kind of a division in philosophies at the college in terms of the community college and kind of and also the other mission of helping students matriculate and get their transfer to a four-year institution. And so the Workforce Education Recovery Fund, originally called the Community Higher Education Fund, was sort of a third way so that City College wasn't stuck in a situation to be choosing between those two visions. And
instead, could you tell me, sorry not to interrupt, but could you tell me where WRF is in the process? Yes. Like, it hasn't been approved by the Board of Supervisors, so it's on the ballot, or is it still in that process?
Okay, yeah, sure. So for the Workforce Education Recovery Fund, we've been meeting with the stakeholders for the past year and working on initially a charter amendment. So a charter amendment, and let me know if, so if I'm missing anything. So for the charter amendment, initially we wanted to propose a charter amendment, but we didn't have enough support because of the financial issues of the city. There were many stakeholder groups that they wanted to fight for their own communities and as well and get support for their own programs and priorities. So we weren't able to get enough political support to put a charter amendment on the ballot to set aside a significant amount of money for City College. So what we decided to do instead was propose a ordinance that would create a fund, and that with the creation of that fund, we would advocate for funding through the city's budget. So the Workforce Education Recovery Fund. Today there's actually a meeting on it in one of the Board of Supervisors committees. So it'll probably, the legislation establishing the fund will probably get created, will probably be done within the month. It'll probably pass within that time frame. But the thing about the Workforce Education Recovery Fund is it's just the language itself it's just essentially a piggy bank, right? So it's a kind of an empty piggy bank. So we need to also get the money into it. So during the budget process, we advocated for money. So our office was pushing for as much money as we could and working to get other supervisor offices to prioritize that during the budget process. Our goal was to get enough supervisors to make it a priority. And I think we fell short. We didn't get as much money as we wanted to. So with what we were able to do, we were able to get $200,000 from various city departments to get that's excess for city departments and bring it into the fund. In addition, we worked with various city departments like the port, airport, and the Public Utilities Commission to get money from their departments too. So that adds up to, I think it was like $350K for all of those departments.
And that's great as far as the raising of money. I would just suggest, because I know you're in those meetings as around language, before we dive into these questions, is let's not just hand out like this huge amount of money to the college without, I know Workforce Education Recovery Fund, that stands for something, but we really want to put language in there that really guides the college to put the money with underserved students, right? Because I've noticed that City College has a lot of money, but sometimes we don't manage our money correctly. And my only concern with the WARF is it narrow enough that people aren't going to slip through the cracks, especially Black students, right? Because we had the student equity money, right? And we still don't feel the effects of that money, at least when I'm talking to my peers. But yeah, that's just my only suggestion. Anybody else feel the need to add as far as language? No? Okay.
No, I just want to,
Go ahead.
I just want to make sure that we're keeping track of time. It's 4:19 right now.
Yeah.
And,
Okay.
but I really appreciate all of the introduction that you've been giving us, Alan. And, but I just want to,
last thing,
okay.
My dad, he's been laid off, just like many other hotel and service sector workers. So he works at the Coast Hotel, and so he's been laid off since COVID hit. And so what's particularly important to me now, as somebody that cares about City College, making sure that it's a place where it can serve our working families, be able to offer social and economic mobility for people, just like it did for my dad many years ago, and allow City College to be this place of hope and opportunity where really miraculous things can happen for young people and old people and working people. So I'll just end it with that, and that's what I really care about at City College.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for introducing yourself and giving us that background. I'm going to dive into the questions. Unless Trill, you got something?
No, the first question is very relevant.
Go ahead, Trill.
No, the first question is very relevant.
Okay, cool.
So thank you.
All right.
Oh, and I would just suggest if people could mute themselves when Alan is talking, it might prevent feedback.
Okay, I got you. All right. So first question is, what is something you believed earlier in your career but think about differently now? I would say you're still in your early career, but what do you think about differently now?
I would say I've been a union organizer and an advocate and a student trustee on the Board of Education. So in the past, I was always an advocate and I would push the hardest, and I could basically say whatever I wanted, right? So when I was a student trustee, I was like, hey, the school district is like a totalitarian state. They need to stop making teachers reply for their jobs. But after becoming a union organizer, I went from being an advocate to also being in a kind of a leadership role, where I to negotiate and be really responsible for all the workers that I was an advocate for. So I went from this role of being an advocate and just kind of advocate pushing to this sort of kind of mix of advocate and leadership role. And so what really changed for me was that I saw that, okay, a lot of times you have to work with the other side that you may be advocating for, right? Because so in this case, it was the management. So in the past, it's like, okay, they're bad, they're evil. So now it's like, okay, I'm in a leadership role. I have union members that want 3%. I have union members that want 7% wage increases. So we're meeting with the employer and we're talking about these issues. And so we talk with the employer. We may get to like 3.5% raises or 4% raises. And at some point, we think that this is as much as we can extract from the employer as good advocates for our members. But at the same time, there might be some members that are like, hey, we want 7% raises. So I'm in that place where I know that, okay, in order to be a leader, I need to be able to tell the people that are with me to be like, hey, this is a time to advocate, and also this is a time when we've extracted all we can. If we go on strike or something, that's not going to help any of us, right? We've reached the tipping point. So we have to go back to our members and be like, okay, let's this seems reasonable. This seems like the best that they can do. Are you okay with it? If the majority is, then we have to bring everybody together on the same page and support the best deal that we were able to get. So I think that's a perspective that I've kind of learned as I've matured from being just kind of hardline advocate to somebody that as a leader, there's this kind of role and responsibility where like, hey, you're advocating, and you're being as bold as possible. And at the same time, when you reach that point where you've gotten everything that you have to bring everybody along with you to be on the same page. So that's what I've learned.
Thank you. Thank you. So for our next question, do you have a background in educational equity? And if so, tell us about it.
So for me, as a high school student going to Lincoln High, I served on I don't know if you guys were active in high school as well. I'm sure many of you were, if you're active at City College. I was on the Student Advisory Council, which was a SFUSC, kind of like a youth commission, except for this school district. And I also served as a student delegate to the Board of Education. And so that was sort of the basically student trustee for the school board. And so in that role, I was an advocate for youth voice. Back then, we were having, the school district was having teachers reapply for jobs when we were closing schools, and the leader of our schools was getting a big giant pay increase and a severance package, very similar to what happened recently at City College. So as a young person, I spoke up against this. I pushed and fought back as a student leader, and the superintendent at that time actually tried to really keep our mouths, keep us from speaking up. She tried to postpone our meetings. She told my fellow youth that if we continue pushing these matters forward, the existence of our Student Advisory Council might be threatened. But I pushed on and got the community to support us. We had many students, we had teachers come to our community meetings as youth and support the Student Advisory Council. And with that, we were able to really push the school district in a direction to respect the youth voices and also support the voices at our school that are supporting equity, the young people that are advocating for equal resources for our schools. And we felt that we weren't being listened to, and the people at the top were getting the resources, the management. And so we really felt that we need to focus the resources in the school rather than closing our school. So as a young person, I actually sued the San Francisco Unified School District as the lead plaintiff in a lawsuit to try and overturn the superintendent's pay increases to make sure that we're not kind of lowering our public confidence in our public school system. And so that was my kind of a learning point as a young person in terms of fighting for youth voice, in terms of fighting for equity. And I've continued that work in different realms in terms of equity, working, as I mentioned earlier, in AmeriCorps, serving our at-risk youth in the Tenderloin with the American Red Cross, advocating and helping support our low-income communities with disaster preparedness. As a union organizer, working with Black, Hispanic, Asian women, home care workers, some of our lowest paid workers that are like angels in our community. And now as a legislative aide with Supervisor Marr, working on these initiatives to ensure that we have equity for our students.
Thank you so much for that answer. That was really good.
Going into our third question, what is your strategy to rectify the harm in education in regards to Black students? And to give you some context, when we talk about harm, we're talking about bad policy, underrepresentation, and underfunded programs.
Yeah, so I guess part of that goes to kind of my intro. One thing that I've really been thinking about a lot is how we can bring resources to the communities that have traditionally been ignored, whether it be kind of ethnic communities or geographical communities, right? So, one thing is having a diverse faculty. Students excel when their mentors reflect the diversity of our school, and so that's been an issue. So with the likely repeal of Prop 209, I really would like to implement a policy where we're making sure that we have diversity in our faculty in hiring, so that we have a workforce faculty that's reflective of our student population. The other thing that I would like to do is the needs assessment that I mentioned. Making sure that we're going to these communities and bringing together community groups, right? APRI groups I'm thinking, in the Southeast, like the groups I've been already kind of mulling over and thinking about are like groups like YCD, groups like CYC, groups like APRI, and bringing all these community groups together to work with me on doing a needs assessment and getting feedback on what sort of resources geographically a traditionally underserved neighborhood needs, and getting that sort of feedback. The other thing is having necessary student support services. So with AB 705 having passed, and allowing students to actually get into classes they need instead of being stuck in remedial classes, now that students are getting into the classes that they need, what we need to do is support them and enable them to have the resources and the mentoring to be able to be successful in those classes. And so that's why in the Workforce Education and Recovery Fund, I've worked to specifically designate funding for those resource centers and student support services so that we can get that there. And this time there's not as much money as we wanted, right? But in the future, maybe in future fiscal years, there's even going to be more so that we can ensure that we have that extra support that we have for students that are in need of that extra support in terms of student support services. And then making sure that we are protecting the Free City College program. If you look at the statistics, it actually, in terms of enrollment, as a sort of a negative, it did help all students increase enrollment, but it generally actually helped increase retired people enroll more. So I think with the new program design, that's a positive for low-income and equity students because it actually gives them more money and it encourages people to utilize the program. So we need to make sure that we're protecting that pot of funding and the money. And I know that with the budget situation, there could be many different groups that may want to see that pot of money as something that they can take, right? So for me, I really have the experience having worked on drafting the legislation to ensure that we protect that program and monitoring the city budget to ensure that we continue to get that funding. So those are just some of the ideas I have. I've got several more, but there's limited time. So
Okay, I hear you. Thank you again for answering. Trill, you can go ahead.
Okay, thank you so much for that answer. And are you, so this is number 4, are you familiar with or aware of the Affirmative Action Taskforce and their mission to instate a Black full-time faculty member to the African American Studies Department?
I haven't heard about the Affirmative Action Task Force. I know about some of the kind of student demands to ensure that we are fully supporting our African American studies. In fact, just a few days ago, there was I was getting communication from one of the ethnic studies programs, and I was being told that right now the enrollment is full for the African American studies classes, right? And so they're looking for late start classes. So one of the department heads, the Asian American studies, Angie Fa, she was actually telling me that, hey, Alan, there are full classes. Can we get some late start classes? So I did push leadership after that and mentioned that, hey, there are these full classes. Let's see if we can, is it possible to get some late start classes? And the following day, Angie texted me, hey, thank you. We got a text to the acting chair that they're adding 1 to 2 late start classes. So, I did do some advocacy, hopefully what I did was helpful in terms of supporting that.
Thank you. Your go, Nikki. You're muted. Sorry.
My bad. All right, so going into number 5, the question is, have you taken any classes in African American studies?
I haven't. So I've taken Asian American studies, but I haven't taken African American studies.
Thank you for answering honestly. And go ahead, Trill, go into number 6.
All right. Can you identify funds in the school budget meant for Black students? If so, tell us what type of fund and how to access it. And this would talk about like allocations in the budget that are specifically meant to go to Black students or marginalized groups. And it could also be a scholarship, because we're all about sharing the knowledge, and it's really hard to find scholarships and things that are specific for Black and Brown students, because sometimes the visibility isn't there. So if you know something, definitely share it, because again, this is going to be recorded and shown. So yeah.
Okay. In terms of like specific like kind of line items of money, I don't have that sort of detailed knowledge of like specifics of the budget, but I think my goal and my objective is to work to ensure that we're reallocating resources to Black community, and ensuring that we're supporting, especially during this time. We literally have a civil rights movement going on right before our eyes, and I think it's very important that we are our budget is kind of a moral document as well as a fiscal one, and that we are representing those values that we're speaking of. And so, I am committed to working with the Black community to ensure that, okay, if we are underserving the Southeast community, that, okay, we're doing needs assessment, show what we need, and getting feedback from the actual Black community, and then getting the feedback that we need to justify and show that we need it. Just like how right now Supervisor Shimon Walton, right, he's getting Black community feedback on how money should be spent by getting direct feedback. And so for me, that'd be my approach. As somebody that's been a union organizer, I really feel that I always need to listen to the people that are impacted. Whenever I was a union organizer, I'd reach out, hey, this is impacting your department. I want to get your feedback. And I think I don't want to purport that I know everything or know what's best for people, when they can be speaking up for themselves and channeling their needs to me instead. And I think that's something that I need to be cognizant of myself, right? Like I think for for WARF itself, right? Making sure that we're getting feedback as opposed to kind of coming up with something and telling people, hey, what do you think about this? Like actually asking people, hey, what are the things that you need? So, I think, in terms of leadership and process, that's the sort of approach that I believe in.
Thank you for that answer.
Thank you. Yes. Going into question 7, can you tell us how much money is in the budget reserves? And would you use this money to support Black students? And if so, how?
In terms of the specific dollar amount, I don't know the exact dollar amount that's in the reserves. But if there are reserves, I would be committed to using reserve money. We obviously want to maintain a 5% threshold so that we're able to protect our accreditation. But I think that if there's any amount more than that, we should make sure that we are able to use it to support our Black community. And did you have a specific question on exactly what? Or
Say that again.
did you just ask how much, or did you ask for what specific programs?
Yeah, how much, and if you were committed to, if there was more funds, of course, higher than 5%, would you support Black students with those funds, and how would you redistribute those funds? What would be an idea for funds?
And also, if you know any programs that are underfunded and that money could go to, that would also be helpful.
So my answer is yes, I would support that. And kind of going back to my previous kind of answer, I would look towards the Black community to give me feedback on what's actually needed instead of kind of purporting to know what's best. I would, my kind of just initial thinking would be student support services, right? Just how we can help with mental health, how we can help with homework, how academically, how we can support students. But again, I don't want to purport to know or to represent a community, right? I want to actually listen to feedback from people.
Yeah, I appreciate that. So for the next question, what is your strategy in regards to Black Student Union demands? And I have a slide, but we also sent you these demands.
On also, my phone here.
Yeah, but I'm going to also provide a slide. So let me share my screen and share. There we go. So we have, there we go. To have a unified Black space and presence that connects all of the resource centers, AFAM Studies Department, and Black Student Union, networking with high schools so we can promote ourselves to potential CCSF students. This encourages longevity and circulation of students into the BSU so we can continue its legacy, making sure that Black programs and resources are given the proper visibility by CCSF, advocating for adequate funding for the African American Resource Center, and an AFAM Studies Associate of Arts degree that can be used for transferring.
Okay, so you want me to go for these?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, so the first bullet point, to have a unified Black space, I think that's very reasonable, right? Just to make sure that there's kind of some cohesion within the services offered to the Black community. I think that would just be a matter of finding the space, right? Working with the facilities and having some sort of motivation and getting through inertia to ensure that we're talking with people. I think with, kind of going back to City College Sunset, like as somebody that was working in a supervisor's office, I had no formal authority over City College or Lincoln High School or Wame School, but somehow, because I kept on bugging and pestering and reaching out to City College every week, was able to get that through. And I think sometimes it requires that, right? As trustee, I don't have formal authority over like kind of administrative stuff like this, but I think as a leader with a fully pulpit, I can be there to be pushing and advocating. So I think the first demand is reasonable. I think we just need to be able to make sure that we follow through and we're pushing and we find the space for it. I'm looking at my phone for the second one.
Well, we made this slide. This
Okay.
is kind of also like
Can you show it again?
Yeah, sure. I can show it again, or I can just read it. When I show it, I noticed on the recording that it kind of blocks everything out.
Got
So
it.
I'll just read it. Networking with high schools so we can promote ourselves to potential CCSF students. This encourages longevity and circulation of students into the BSU so we can continue its legacy. So making sure that we are, this also goes into the visibility, because the thing about these demands is that they are very intersecting, you know.
Yeah, you know, I think that's that's something that might not even require any additional funding either, right? So it seems totally reasonable to get that. I think that's a matter of kind of partnership work and getting people out of their silos and having that collaboration. And you know, again, it's similar to City College Sunset, right? It's kind of bringing many people together that may not necessarily fall under each other to be able to work together. And so, well, you know, I think it's just a matter of kind of introducing people and having that follow through between the organization. So well, it may have kind of less to do with me as a trustee and more to do with the various kind of I guess the departments and the specific individuals that may have the ability to implement this. It could be just one person at the school district that's like, hey, you can be meeting with students during this day and time. Let me coordinate that for you. So it could be just about finding that right person and connecting you guys with them.
Okay. Would you like me to read the other ones? Or?
Yes, please.
Okay. Making sure that Black programs and resources are given the proper visibility by CCSF.
Yeah, again, I would say that's similar to the previous one, right? It's just ensuring that we're implementing, right? So whether it be if we're having a presentation or if we're having a meeting or if we're having a fair, just making sure the Black community is included. So it's just being kind of level of cognizance and getting of our own silos.
Right. Advocating for adequate funding for the African American Resource Center. We can give a little bit of background if you want.
Yes, please.
On the African. Okay. So the African American Resource Center currently is in a very, this goes again with visibility. And if you want to step in, Nikki, you probably could do this better than I could. But yeah, it's very small. The food that we would get in there would always be expired, or it could get expired very easily. It wasn't really a Black space.
As well too.
Oh yeah, sure. Yeah,
Not only is it the African American Student Resource Center, but it is also the Umoja Center as well. Both are on in different places on the campus, and both are underfunded. They are closed, frequent, small, and just have way less resources for Black students.
And I think that sums it up pretty well.
Yeah.
As far as but yeah, going back into the question, Trill, was about how would we ensure the sustainability of these programs?
And how can you keep focused on this demand anyway, because this is a very tangible place where money and funding can go.
Yeah, you know, I think being an advocate for it, right? You know, making sure that we are also like ensuring that it also has to do with you a little bit, right? Ensuring that you guys are coming to the board of trustees meetings and making sure that your voices are heard. Because the other thing is sometimes like the loudest voices prevail. And so like sometimes it may not even be representative of the real opinions of the community at the college, right? So, you know, I think there's some community organizing involved, ensuring that we have people that are speaking up and holding me accountable and putting, making sure that you're holding me accountable and pressuring me and the other trustees and advocating to ensure that those priorities are heard consistently. So, you know, I think also, you know, for me as a potential trustee, being an advocate and being also like, as we face likely additional cuts, being cognizant of the values that we hold and ensuring that we are supporting the Black community.
I think that term values, it goes into the last one, an AFAM studies Associates of the Arts degree that can be used for transferring, because we value the African American department, which actually I believe it celebrated its 50th anniversary.
Yeah.
But at the same time, we don't allow this to be promoted as a way to study and because other universities have this as a degree, and we have these wonderful classes, and maybe we'll be adding more, maybe late term as you were talking about, but this should be a way to move on and get a transfer degree. Yeah,
that's amazing. I'm happy we went into detail. I don't think we've had the opportunity to do that in our previous conversations as well as we did now. So yeah, going into our second to last question, which is, what makes you different in this race?
What makes me different? You know, I think I was born and raised in San Francisco, and my entire family went to City College. And, you know, I've been, I've experienced City College. I've been doing the work of securing funding through WRF, through Free City College, through supporting the serving the community that I actually advocate for and represent, working in the District 4 Sunset office right now. So, you know, I have the experience advocating and supporting City College, as well as the lived personal experience. And so, you know, I think those are my strongest attributes, and, you know, it's why I've been able to get broad support all across the city, even though sometimes the city is divided. You know, with the community college, with the City College community, I've been able to, you know, another thing that makes me stand out is all 6 of the trustees that are making endorsements, they have endorsed me. One can't endorse because of her kind of job, but all 6 of the trustees have endorsed me, and I've also supported by the different labor groups, AFT Local 2121 and SCIU Local 1021, as well as the Building Trades Council. And so, you know, as you know, as you may know, like those 2 groups often kind of differ, have differences of opinion on things, right? And so for them to, all these groups to come around me, you know, I think it reflects the work that I've been doing at the college, and as somebody that is willing to work with all the parties to ensure that we have a college that continues serving our young people and ensures that we have a thriving institution as we face a dire fiscal circumstances at the college.
Definitely. Thank you for that answer. And this may seem this next question may seem a little bit repetitive rather, but how are you committed to helping the African American Studies department? You know, we gotta make sure we're going for our people, you know?
Yeah, you know, I think as somebody that's been a lifelong social justice advocate, somebody that's, you know, as I mentioned, like when I was with SEIU, our biggest, most important, and also like the backbone of our membership were the Black women that were in our union, and they were the strongest leaders, the most outspoken ones, and willing to push for things. And, you know, for me, you know, I think this is a continuation of this kind of lifelong work that I've been involved in as a social justice advocate. And a lot of times it, you know, may involve me not necessarily being in lead, but just stepping back and being able to listen to other people. You know, as a union organizer, it's like, hey, you're there to facilitate and help people be successful, and you guide and you coach them, and you're organizing, but you know, you're going to let the people that you're representing, you're letting the people that you're serving be able to be the leaders in deciding things.
Thank you so much. Yeah, that's all the questions that we have.
Yeah, those are really thoughtful questions. I'd actually, if you can send me some of those, send me those questions that you asked, so that way, you know, for me, like, you know, there's some things that I wasn't satisfied about that I didn't know when you asked me. So, you know, I would like to personally, like, you know, get those questions back so that, you know, I can do some of my own research and be able to figure out, okay, you know, I didn't know this, I should look more into this so that I'm better prepared.
Yeah. Totally hear you. And just to echo some of the things you've said throughout this conversation, which is, you believe that the budget should be a moral document, right? It should reflect the values in which, we uphold. I really am appreciative of you bringing up the needs assessment. That's something that I've learned throughout my work here. It's like just advocating for folks that it is definitely important to not just do your own ideas, right, from what you see personally, but really getting that community feedback is what's gonna make sure everyone feels heard and seen. And that's really what creates belonging, right, in communities, and helps people thrive. And you as a legislative aide for Gordon Marr, representing the Sunset District, I know that just those experiences, those skills will transfer if you were able to.
Sunset resident?
Yeah. But yeah, happy to have met with you. Feel free to chime in, but other than that, thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Sounds good. Great to meet you all.
Thank you, Alan.
Have a good
Yeah,
day.
thank you so much.
You too.
You too.